Deniz Tech, welcome to Australian Musician. Uh,
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say congratulations on 50 years as a band, celebrating the big 5-0 with Radio.
That's right. Well, it feels very strange because it doesn't seem like it's been that long.
Yeah,
But then again, when you look back on those early times with the band, it seems like it was in another universe. So
yeah,
it's like it seems like the time went really fast and on one hand, and then on the other hand, it seems like who was that and what happened there and what planet was that on? It just seems so weird.
yeah, for sure. Sort of looking back to when you first started back in '74 and the early '70s, what was the music scene like back then?
Yeah. It seemed like it was in a pretty flat spot for music at that time in the early 70s. There were a lot of exciting Australian rock and roll bands in the 60s,
Yeah,
but by 72 or 71 or 72, there's mostly electric boogie blues kind of music or sort of prog rock stuff. And it was pretty lame. There wasn't a lot of exciting stuff going on.
okay, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I see that with early influences, you're fairly heavily influenced by like the Stooges and MC5 and that type of thing, which you can tell, obviously, with your listening to your music. Definitely, you can hear that influences there. Big
Well,
fan,
I grew
obviously.
up in that. I grew up in the same town, and so I went to the same school as those guys, and I was a few years behind them, a
Yeah,
few years younger, but I went to all the concerts, and that's sort of what I grew up on.
yeah, yeah.
That and Motown right around the corner too.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess with the Stooges, they got that real high energy sort of just thrill and excitement in their music. Like it's really edgy, and I can hear
Yeah.
that in your music as well. It's certainly a sound you were looking for when you put the band together.
Yeah, I think we weren't trying to copy the Stooges, but um, we were trying to play sort of authentic rock and roll music, but with that attitude. I think what we copped from the Stooges and probably a lot from the MC5 too was the sort of the hardcore attitude that they had toward what they were doing. They put the music up ahead of everything else, and they didn't care how the chips fell after they did that.
Yeah. And I guess initially when you started that and around that time when you released your EP, Burn My Eye, you obviously had a bit of struggle at the time trying to get, gigs in bars and clubs and get, someone to sign the band up, a record label. What was that like back then?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, because what we were doing wasn't what was going on. We were going against the grain of the of the music at the time. So what we were doing was different, and it took about a year before we were allowed to play in the same place twice. A lot of times we weren't even able to finish a gig. We'd get tossed out after two or three songs.
Right.
And but eventually that led to we couldn't play anywhere in any clubs or pubs or anything. So we started running our own shows, putting our own concerts on in
Yeah.
garages and church halls and things like that we would rent.
Yeah, even I heard selling the EP out the back of the van, sort of scenario with fans and that type of thing.
Yeah, it was very sort of all do-it-yourself stuff, and of course with the EP and our early recordings, we had help from Trafalgar from the studio. They
Right.
believed in us, and so they let us record there and helped us get the stuff out.
Yeah. And then when Sire signed you up and they re got radios appear sort of out there, and obviously you gained a lot more popularity. which was awesome for you. Um, I noticed it was sort of another 3 years before the next album came out. What sort of happened during that 3 year period?
Well, actually, the signing with Sire ended up being a disaster for the band because, you know, uh, we had a pretty good thing going in Australia by then, a good following by then, and we we signed to Sire and went to the UK, moved to London, and it was basically starting over from scratch. But now the context was the punk movement. This was 1978
Yeah,
by now, and and again, what we were doing was not going along with the fabric of the musical context of London at that time. We weren't doing punk music,
yeah,
and and we weren't fashionable in their eyes at all. We were some Australians that sort of showed up, and who were these guys? And there was a lot of ran into a lot of more struggle at that time. Like just when we had thought we were past all of that, we were back in it again,
mm,
and then we got dropped from the label right away. I mean, our album hadn't even Radios Appear hadn't even been distributed to
okay,
stores by before we and most of the other bands on the label got dropped. They dropped about 20 bands at the same time because they uh, they had a few bands that were paying for everything else.
yeah,
A few successful ones, and the others were just bands that Seymour just really liked and wanted to support. And he couldn't afford to do it anymore. They ran into financial trouble and dropped everybody. And we were right in the middle of our tour when that happened.
okay,
So we had a record that wasn't going into distribution, and the band on it's kind of on the rocks really because we were over there without any support, and we broke up. So
yeah,
the band broke up over there in summer of 78, and then we didn't get back together until the end of 95.
right, yep. On the subject of your music style, what music style would you sort of call your music?
uh that it's it sounds different to different people,
Mm,
but to me it's rock and roll music.
yeah,
It's like probably 60s based rock and roll music.
yeah. It's just I've read up a fair bit about the band and different words are thrown out there, pro punk and garage and hard rock and surf rock and all these different. And I think your music's got probably a bit of everything in it, to be honest. And it's
Yeah.
quite timeless. A lot of your music, it's still current to this day.
Well, I think you're right. It does carry all those bits and pieces of all of those elements.
Mm,
Um, I'm a big fan of the Ventures and the Shadows, and surf instrumentals. I love that stuff. And so if you love something, that deeply, it's going to be incorporated into what you do. And so yeah, it has a surf element, and yeah, it's probably the punk element is more the attitude factor rather than the
yeah,
music. Um, and it's a six-piece band. We've got keyboards. The arrangements aren't all simple, so it's not all punk music either. There's elements of in our music that go beyond the garage. That's for sure.
yeah. Okay,
But then there is some garagey stuff in there too. So you're right. It's a melange of different styles.
for sure. And so, yeah, I guess with Radio Birdman's history, it's sort of in and out, at times, like bring out an album and then you went off and did some other side projects with different bands like New Race and the New Christs and different members and
Yeah,
different things.
yeah.
And then eventually coming back together. Do you find by going away and being in a different band, playing maybe different style music, and then coming back makes you a bit fresh and ready to go again and bring out some, you know, new material.
It really does. And that's kind of a two-edged sword, because when you come back with new things, back to the old context, the old group, it's like a family reunion. You're coming back to have Christmas dinner with the family again.
Yeah,
And and if you bring new idea, if everybody's bringing new ideas back, it's not going to sound the same as it did in 1975 or 76. And a lot of people want it to sound like that because that's where their memory of it is. And so it definitely changes it. You're right about that.
yeah, that's definitely would be a huge challenge with bands, is when you want to make, you know, start making different sounds and songs, and you know, to keep yourself interested in the music as well, I guess, and maybe keep with the times. So that's obviously always a constant sort of challenge you'd have with fans that just like the old stuff, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. There are not that many bands or musicians that have successfully reinvented themselves multiple times
Mm,
and really done it successfully. And probably the one that comes to my mind first is David Bowie.
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, that guy really did. And but like you say, quite a challenge to do that. And I've had solo records that have come out that have sold less than 500 copies because it sounded too different.
Yeah,
It wasn't what people thought I should be doing.
yeah. I've listened to some of your solo work, and yeah, very different to Radio Birdman, but you know, I'm a lover of music, so I enjoy most genres of music. So it's, you know, good music is good music.
Yeah, I agree. Same here. I listen to everything, and there's always something that you can find that's interesting in any genre. And
Yeah,
there's also a lot of crap in any genre too. But
yeah,
you got, but it's fun to look for the good stuff.
yeah. Reading up on yourself and the band, I came across something that caught my interest, and that was that back when you were in the US Air Force as a surgeon there, you on your helmet you had Iceman, and there's this links there to Top Gun movie, whether that was your character that Val Kilmer played. Do you watch? Have you obviously heard that before? So
Oh yeah, yeah. This story's been going around for years and years now, and it is true that actually it was I was in the Navy, not the Air Force,
yeah,
but I was the original Iceman. That's there's no doubt about that because I had that call sign.
yeah,
You're given a call sign when you go to your first uh, operational squadron in the Navy, and you have to keep that call sign for your whole career. They don't change it. And some crew from the movie of Top Gun came out to our squadron to visit, and they hung around for about 2 weeks and took photos and made notes and tried to figure out, how Phantom Squadron worked.
mm,
And I was there. I had that call sign. It was
yeah,
on my name tag and on my helmet, and they would have seen it. And then the movie comes out a year and a half later, and there's Iceman in the movie,
yeah,
but it could be that it was already written into the script and just a coincidence, but I don't know.
yeah. Okay. Oh well, we'll take it that you were the original. Um, so then you got back together and did Xeno Beach. Uh, what was your what do you sort of remember about making that album?
Yeah, we'd gotten back together in the 90s, and we had been, going for about 8 or 9 years on just playing the back catalog and some covers and doing great. But I didn't think that we were a real band if we weren't coming up with new original material.
Yeah.
And so I insisted on doing a new album. I said either we do a new album or we hang it up. And so guys started writing, and we got together and many sessions at Sound Level in Sydney to get this album put together. And then finally, we had enough. We had about 20 songs, 20 new songs, and we took it to Big Jesus Burger in Sydney and recorded it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a new drummer at that point, Rusty Hopkinson from UMI,
Oh yeah.
had
Great.
joined the band
Yeah.
on drums, and so that gave it a different bit of a different flavor also.
Mm.
In the early days, I did most of the writing, almost all the writing of songs, but on Xeno Beach, there was a lot more of a group effort. There was,
Yeah.
everybody was doing some writing.
Yeah. It was interesting when I was reading up on the band, the name Radio Birdman, how you got that from the 1970 song by the Stooges. And obviously my curiosity got the better of me to have a listen to that song again. And I can only
Yeah,
hear Radio Birdman. I can't hear Radio Burnin'.
I know it, and I was friends with Ron Ashton, the guitar player, and he told me that the original lyric was "radio buzzing,"
Ah, there you go.
radio buzzing up above. But you listen to that, you don't hear that.
I can only hear Radio Birdman in that song. Great
Yeah,
song. But yeah. Um,
that's what we heard too.
Now, I just today, there's a new biography coming out called Retaliate First. Um,
Yeah.
what can you tell us about that?
Well, I haven't read it yet.
Right.
Uh, I did do quite a bit of interview with Murray and gave him as many facts and details as I could, as whatever he asked me, I answered him
Oh,
as honestly as possible.
yeah.
And he went way deep. I can tell you that this is going to be a very deep and very thorough account of where this band came from and how it got put together and what it did.
Yeah.
It's there have been other books, and they've been good books too, but this one's going to go much further.
Yeah. Okay. And obviously, you're coming over. You're in Hawaii at the moment. You're coming over next week, ready for the Australian tour known as the 50 tour to celebrate 50 years as Radio Birdman in Australia.
Yep,
Excited?
very much so.
Yeah, me too.
Can't wait to get out there and do that. It's I've been practicing at home quite a bit, about 2, 3, 4 hours a day playing guitar to get my speed and endurance back.
Yeah.
And relearn all those songs. And yeah, I mean, the last time we played was in 2019, just before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
That was the last tour. So been about 5 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've
Well,
done
Melbourne,
I've done quite a bit of solo work in the meantime, but I can't wait to get back with Birdman because it's got its own special chemistry, and when you light that fuse, it goes off.
yeah, I can't wait. As we talked about earlier, I'm in Melbourne. You're playing at the Croxton in Melbourne
Yep.
on the 21st and 22nd of June. Great venue. I think it'll be a perfect venue for you. Have you played there before?
Yeah, in fact, the last time we played was at the Croxton.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was with Ed Pretty, I think it was.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So I'll be there. So I'm excited, to see you in a few weeks' time. And
Thank you. I'm excited for you to be there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know the room will be electric.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of friends going, so we're all getting excited for the show. So and finally, as we mentioned, you're in Hawaii at the moment. You run a coffee plantation, is that, or you?
Yeah, it's a little farm. Only it's our place is only 7 acres.
Right.
And I took it. We took my wife and Ann and I took it over from my parents when they passed away, and they yeah. So we grow coffee and macadamia nuts, and it's not a big operation, but it's something to do and it's fun.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I love my coffee. You might have to bring me some of those beans. The
Yeah, they're pretty good.
coffee.
100% Kona.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful. Well, look, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure. And
You're welcome.
said,
Thank you.
look forward to your upcoming tour in Australia in June. And
Great.
congratulations once again on the 50 years. Nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.